Good, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Convening the Clark County Council and council time this Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. We'll start with the roll call.
Counselor Young,
Here.
Counselor Belcott,
Present.
Counselor Fuentes,
Here.
Counselor Little,
Here.
Chair Marshall.
Here. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda? I have a couple of amendments to the agenda. Removal of 9.4 under executive sessions and adding 9.6.
And for clarification, can you read the RCW for the added agenda
I can.
and the time and if there's potential after action?
Absolutely. RCW 42.30.110 paren 1 paren little I for 15 minutes. Oh, there may be after action, potential after action. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Just a reminder to folks to keep your comments to the agenda items, and you're limited to 3 minutes. And please keep your comments civil.
Mary Panovich.
Good afternoon, Chair Marshall, Councilor Fuentes, Councilor Little, Councilor Young, and Councilor Belcott. My name is Mary Panovich, and I am the Assistant Special Agent in charge with the FBI Portland office. With me today are several colleagues who either live in Clark County, work in Clark County, or both. We're here to highlight the FBI's long-standing partnership with Clark County and the vital role Camp Bonneville plays in training law enforcement to make Clark County a safer community for its residents. The FBI's use of Camp Bonneville is far more than a training facility. It represents a sustained investment in public safety, the local economy, and the collaborative relationships that keep Clark County secure. More than 90 FBI employees call Clark County home. We contribute over $9 million in annual salaries to the local economy. And on training days, our personnel support local businesses, restaurants, and shops. Our most important contribution to Clark County is to public safety. Over the past 3 years, the FBI has responded to more than 1,500 complaints from Clark County residents, opened 217 investigations, arrested 179 offenders, seized 400 pounds of dangerous drugs, and nearly 200 firearms. We have also recovered 33 missing or exploited children. During the same time, FBI SWAT has arrested 11 of the region's most violent criminals right here in Clark County. Camp Bonneville is essential to this work. The FBI trains there about 60 times each year, 20 days for firearms qualifications and instructor development, and 40 days for SWAT. Roughly a quarter of those sessions involve no firearms at all. Even on firearms days, live fire training is limited to just a few hours in the morning, with the remainder devoted to tactical decision-making and team coordination. We operate under strict self-imposed limitations out of respect for the community. There's no training on weekends, evenings, or holidays, no outside agencies, no explosives, tracers, or incendiary devices. We use firearm suppressors when possible to reduce noise, and we utilize reduced lead ammunition to minimize environmental impact. Just as important, Camp Bonneville is one of the very few facilities in the entire region capable of supporting both firearms and tactical training in a single secure environment, an essential requirement for modern law enforcement readiness and extremely difficult to replicate elsewhere. For more than a decade, the FBI has operated at zero cost to Clark County. We have funded major improvements, including berm construction, firing lanes, structural upgrades.
Thank you very much. Your time's up.
Thank you.
Chair, if I could ask just for a quick pause, I did get a notification from Councilor Belcott and one other person. It looks like our web link online is not working. So if we could just take a quick pause so we can fix that online so that those online can listen.
Great, let's do that.
Thank you.
We'll
So
pause.
if you want to pause the recording for a minute.
Okay, we're back from our pause. Apologize for the inconvenience. We're moving on now to, public comment. We're just starting public comment, so.
Gregory Shaw,
Is it on? Yes. So I'd like to take the first few seconds just to stand in silence in respect of our dear friend Alan Thomas. One of you is a counselor because of the work that Alan did. And you would not be sitting on that dais today if it weren't for him knocking on hundreds of doors and pleading with us to support you. And you are now standing in a position of seeking to undermine the conservation activities of Camp Bonneville. So I have sent to you, and I believe that you should rename Camp Bonneville in honor of Alan Thomas. That's the least you could do. Your proclamation says you want to have some enduring and perpetual memory of his contribution to the conservation activities of Clark County. There's no one who represents that more than he did. Now for the things at hand. We've just heard the 3-minute Disney presentation of SAC Olson's 30-minute soliloquy on the wonders of the FBI in our county. We all know the importance of the FBI. We all know the things they do that are important. We all know the risks they take. We all know the dangers they deal with every day. I worked at the FBI for 2.5 years as a senior executive in the National Security Division. I worked undercover for 27 years. So what they say is true, but what they say does not justify them taking the prized conservation property that comes with a deed restriction, only allowing the use of conservation of natural resources, nothing else, nothing more. So I urge you to disconnect yourself from the idea that our responsibility, the sheriff's office, and having a county-run, county-funded facility for the county is important. It is important. But it's not the same as what the FBI is wanting to do here. They've run roughshod over the property for 2 or 3 decades, and that's got to stop. So I'm going to move right to this, because what we have now is the FBI, which stands before us and has generated pressure from the United States Attorney's Office in Seattle against the public.
Mr. Shaw, my name is Katie Fairchild. I am an assistant United States attorney in the Western District of Washington in the Civil Division, and I was calling to see if you had a moment to speak with me about a public records request. If you have time.
I'll stop there because my time's up. But these FBI people are putting the U.S. Attorney's Office on the tail of private citizens in this county and pressuring me to give up my rights.
Greg, thank you.
Ann Shaw,
Councilors, your proclamation honoring Alan Thomas calls for celebrating his accomplishments in perpetuity. I can think of no better tribute than to rename Camp Bonneville as the Alan Thomas Conservation Area. Alan was committed to assuring this property being maintained for the conservation of natural resources, as stipulated in the conservation conveyance. It is fitting to proclaim the Alan Thomas Conservation Area as a lasting way to honor Alan. Today's agenda also includes the FBI, yet again. The FBI wants you to believe that its continued use of Camp Bonneville will cost county taxpayers nothing, yet its own memo shows it does not pay users' fee. In addition, the use agreement you voted down the FBI inserted a provision that excludes the range from cleanup. Why? For over 30 years, the FBI has ignored NRA cleanup standards for outdoor firing ranges. Soil tests show that the FBI range is more heavily contaminated than the property's old Army ranges. Based on the cleanup costs for other Camp Bonneville ranges and land use restrictions that require UXO support, remediating this contamination will cost millions of dollars. Yet the FBI wants free rein to contaminate Camp Bonneville, then saddle Clark County taxpayers with the cleanup costs. FBI partners with every law enforcement agency in the region, yet they are not burdening other taxpayers with millions of dollars in cleanup costs from their training activities. The FBI doesn't care that 12,000 rounds of their stolen ammunition has endangered our community. SSE Olson refuses to even acknowledge that this theft occurred, and there's been no third-party investigation. This theft came to light through public records. The FBI now insists you willingly violate the Open Public Records Act and is demanding notification of records so that they can obtain a court order prohibiting their release. Are you aware that county staff already is providing the FBI with information about lawful public records requests? As a result, the FBI and the Department of Justice are now targeting my family. The FBI is intent on suppressing information about its activities at Camp Bonneville and does not want to be held accountable for its actions. This must stop. Other law enforcement agencies have their own facilities or train at other venues. You've directed the Sheriff's Office to seek alternatives. If the FBI is truly concerned about protecting its agents and investigations, they should build their own training facility elsewhere. Terminating the FBI's use of Camp Bonneville is a settled matter. Do not allow the FBI to further entrench themselves on this conservation property. Do not allow them to harass private citizens. This does not serve the public interest.
Thank you.
Bob Friedland.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Friedland, and I am a retired researcher and educator that's been involved with the issues of developmental disabilities across the entire lifespan for over 30 years, from movement problems in infants and children to adults with disabilities in their later years. I'm speaking to agenda item 5.2. I currently serve as a volunteer on the Clark County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, and I am serving as vice chair currently. The Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board advises and makes recommendations to the Clark County Council related to developmental disabilities, issues, and services. The advisory board is dedicated to advocating for full community participation and meaningful inclusion for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. For our upcoming 2026 legislative priorities, our first priority would be to press legislators to maintain and protect existing funding streams in Washington state. By this, we are focused on any further erosion of state support levels for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So while our initial legislative priorities acknowledge the reality of the federal funding changes, we need to ensure that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities can continue to live, work, and participate fully in community life. So priority one is to keep a vigil on protecting the further erosion of Medicaid and to fully maintain existing funding streams at the state level. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Lead.
The decision the council made to terminate FBI's use of Camp Bonneville was the right one and should be a settled matter. If the council recalls the decision, it suggests that the public will not be able to trust their vote on any matter before the council, thus undermining public trust. The FBI continues to refuse to give complete answers about the 12,000 rounds of stolen ammunition. There is also a lack of full transparency from FBI about what they've done at Camp Bonneville, the areas they've used, and what types of contamination they've introduced. FBI also uses the property for free and has never paid user fees to the county. The county needs to end law enforcement use of Camp Bonneville so that it can be fully cleaned, remediated, and restored as a conservation area. I also support renaming the property as the Allen Thomas Conservation Area as a tribute to a community leader who exemplified environmental stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Reynolds,
My name's Patty Reynolds. Council, Alan Thomas was my friend. We were not long-term friends. We weren't childhood friends, but rather friends of our age and our locality and our love of our local and global environment. Among his other attributes, Alan's love of nature, environmental protection, wildlife, and conservation were brilliantly described in the Columbian's heartfelt memorial tribute. His dry humor, love of family, and crazy need to run or cycle all around the dangerous roads of our rural community are well known by old and new friends as well. Alan's frustration with the poor handling of the nearly 4,000 acres of beautiful yet contaminated land in our local community was well known, maybe not as fiercely presented as some of us who are here this afternoon. The request by many who knew Alan for you to honor my friend by amending the name Camp Bonneville to the Alan Thomas Conservation Area would be incredibly touching and well-deserved. The best way for council to honor this outstanding Clark County citizen whose life was so focused on conservation and the environment is to ensure his wishes are truly represented by this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Hardy,
Councilors, not respecting the finality of the 3-2 vote of the former FBI contract, especially without holding the promised Friends of Camp Bonneville work session first, deeply undermines the public trust and engagement. Councilor Little, all the residents living near Camp Bonneville are your constituents, and they are clearly, even though they're not here, they're behind us. Because this is a 1 o'clock meeting after a Thanksgiving holiday. They are clearly behind removing the FBI because they see them as terrible neighbors, many of which, when the Army was there, didn't feel the same way. Councilor Young, when speaking about law enforcement uses at Camp Bonneville at a recent council meeting, you said, quote, and again, it's about pollutants, so no activity that contributes further to pollution. What the FBI is asking to do is inherently a polluting activity, especially when they won't clean up the lead on the range, which endangers every officer. Furthermore, Councilor Young, you have acknowledged in meetings with advocates that you know the FBI has violated the terms of their previous contract. Why would you reward the FBI contract for that? And Mark Lead talked about the money aspect of this and what the FBI has contributed financially and what they have not. It has also been implied that the Clark County Sheriff's has somehow equally contributed to the pollution of the firing range at Camp Bonneville. When you consider the decades of evidence showing the FBI inviting hundreds of law enforcement agencies from all over the country, some from foreign countries, to misuse Camp Bonneville, this argument falls flat. The cost of cleaning up other firing ranges and their overshoot areas at Camp Bonneville were to the tune of millions of dollars, and the FBI refuses to clean up the firing range. How does this make them a good partner? The Army terminated all law enforcement use of the property, including the FBI, in 2006, when it was transferred to the county for the conservation of natural resources. It is still included in the county plan for future use as a public park, something that will never occur if law enforcement continues to pollute it, use it indefinitely, and refuses to make a move somewhere else as it should have done decades ago. The FBI has had over 25 years to develop its own training facility. It has a huge budget, and the federal government has its own land. This is not Clark County's problem. The county continues to act in shameful ways regarding Camp Bonneville, and revisiting this vote is no different. It is unfortunate that it has come on the same day that you're looking to draft a resolution to honor Alan Thomas, and Patty very eloquently spoke about how the community feels and the contributions that Alan did. Do the right thing. Hold the FBI accountable and return Camp Bonneville to the people of Clark County. Stop defying your constituents and serving the interests of the FBI. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmen De Leon.
I'm up. Hi, I'm Carmen De Leon and I go by Mello. And I guess I have a twofold thing because I do want to make a correction. And it does have to do with, do I count as disabled? Because I am disabled and I wasn't born with a disability. I was given it by an illegal. So I would like to correct my error and read this as it's written properly. House Bill 355 run from the Oregon legislature sponsored by Representative Scarlatos. And this is not all of it because it's been changed, obviously. So requires, if this law passes, it requires public bodies and law enforcement agencies to enforce immigration law with respect to any individual who is convicted of a violent felony or a Class A misdemeanor or felony of sexual offense. And this is, I didn't read the whole thing because of the time. So anyways, to me as a disabled person, this is of the utmost importance because we are the most vulnerable. We are broken. So we do need to get rid of people who commit felonies in this country and weren't born here. That was my error. If you want to go back and go ahead and look. Now, on the other hand, we got this stuff about the FBI. And I wonder if it was an inside job. How do you lose thousands of dollars in ammunition? So the crooks were keeping a better eye on the place than you? Really? Wow, I got to hand it to them. We ought to hire them. We ought to hire them because they can't take care of their own stuff and they have a problem obeying the law, which I've seen is a pretty much epidemic in Clark County because, as you know, Ann has violated the law and her minions are violating the law by not caring that Skamania County has made certain findings of broken laws in this county. So I guess you guys figure you're untouchable, huh? Because you're not. They can be fired and you can be voted out. So maybe you should consider that when the way you treat people, because for 2 days now, I've been trying to call in and they didn't pick up the phone. Right now, today, again, it's not working. How many millions of dollars have you put into this equipment and it's failing you? How many millions are we putting into them? And we've lost their trust. I would put a whole bunch of money and invest it into gaining the public's trust because you've lost it. They've lost it, you've lost it. And you know, once you lose it, it's really hard to get back. So I'm going to go ahead and let you, whatever. If I have to, I will put Kimberly on speakerphone to talk this way because she's been having trouble with that. So it's still my 3 minutes. I do want to share with her if I have to, because there's obviously something going on with your electronics that you paid millions of dollars for.
Thank you.
Should I put her on speaker?
Alex Luna.
At the end, if she's still on, we can call on her.
Good afternoon. The decision to terminate the FBI's use of Camp Bonneville is settled. Reconsidering it betrays the public trust. You are elected to represent us, not a federal agency that bullies its residents and suppresses records requests. The FBI has abused this conservation land for decades. It's violated agreements, refused to explain those stolen rounds of ammunition, and has never cleaned up the dangerous lead contamination. Pays nothing while Clark County bears the cost. I really hope that you uphold your votes. Do not side with an unaccountable federal agency over the community that you serve and that has gotten you elected. This property is meant for our future, not a permanent polluting training ground. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have anybody else signed up in the room. Is there anybody else?
There's one more out there.
Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Byrne, and I live in Ridgefield. I'm surprised that Camp Bonneville is on today's agenda, as the Ecology Open House is scheduled next week for December 10th in Hawkinson. We need to hear from the Department of Ecology first. In their draft November periodic review on page 73, it states, for future use as a regional park based solely on activities in the 2005 reuse plan, the cleaning actions are not protective of human health and the environment. Also, page 59 states, additional methods for clearance should be undertaken for certain areas of the park where intensive use will occur, such as campgrounds, picnic areas, recreation areas, and playgrounds. It does not address shooting ranges. There are many data gaps in Ecology's information. Ecology finally conceded it would recommend a cleanup depth up to 24 inches, but Ecology failed to do this. Areas were either surface cleaned down to 3 inches or cleared to a depth of 14 inches, the frost line. Why the discrepancy? What percentage of the camp was actually cleared? Were roads and trails cleared? To what depth? What of the recent anomalies that were detected? Were they investigated? What about groundwater pollution? Ecology acknowledges that lead is bad. How does this apply to the levels of lead contamination that remain in the soil at firing ranges? Has the soil at these firing ranges been tested for other chemical contamination? Give Ecology the opportunity to answer these serious questions. There was no acknowledgement that this was given to the county under a conservation conveyance for the conservation of natural resources. Secondly, the decision to terminate the FBI use of Camp Bonneville is a settled matter. You voted. And to revisit it now undermines the public trust in counselors and staff. Reopening the vote is a mistake. The FBI claims it operates under strict self-imposed limitations, but this is untrue. We need explanations for the missing 12,000 rounds, the lack of a contract since 1922, FBI guests, the last FBI improvements were done in 1996. The FBI has used the firing range for over 33 years and has never cleaned up lead or other contamination, nor does the proposed contract require regular cleanup. This endangers all law enforcement who use the range, and additional cleanup cannot occur with continued FBI firing. We are here today to honor Alan Thomas. I was a fish biologist. I worked with Alan an awful lot. What better way to honor him than by creating the Alan Thomas
Thank you very much,
Conservation
Jim.
Area?
Thanks.
Is there anybody else?
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Torres. I'm the acting special agent in charge for FBI Portland Field Office. The Camp Bonneville reuse plan explicitly allows for a law enforcement training center. Section 4.5.2, and more specifically includes the FBI in section 4.5.7. Approving a new contract with the FBI is not simply a procedural step, it is a confirmation of the county's commitment to public safety, professionalism, and responsible stewardship of Camp Bonneville. The county incurs no cost, and the benefit to public safety, security, and readiness are substantial. I want to thank you all for your time and consideration. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the hearing room? Okay, we do have a couple of people online. Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute yourself. Please do so. state your name for the record and go ahead with your comments.
Good afternoon. This is Kimberly Goheen Elbin, live citizen of Clark County, Washington, USA. Not only was I disabled a little bit today, I went to my eye doctor and my vision is not clear, but this this entity that I'm speaking to right now put out a false access code number, and I tried frantically for quite a while. Of course, it jacks up my blood pressure, and you guys were rude to the person that was trying to help me get an access code. I finally got the correct access code. What I'd like to know is why does this happen pretty often? So I want to put it on record that I know earlier this year I complained about you did not put on the *3 for people to raise their hand. So they're assuming that they're going to be called on, but they're not. And you did that on purpose. Finally, after a few tries, you did put on the *3 where people can raise their hand when they're over on the phone. So this can't happen again. You caused me a great amount of anxiety, and I'm pretty upset about it. I was unable to listen to the meeting, the first probably looks like 25 minutes of it. So I don't know what's the problem, but I know everybody's getting pretty well paid, and you need to keep up on this agenda like this. Just to mention a little bit, I just heard maybe that FBI guy speak and stuff. Come to find out that legislators or most anybody that doesn't love God and knows that it's a sin to lie, it can tell lies. And so that's basically what my duty is to hold this county accountable. You are in a sanctuary status, and we want to hold you accountable. It's evident that I hate to say Democrats, because a lot of people lie, but it mostly seems like it is. We definitely seem to be a Democrat state, that they can lie. And then it's up to us, we the people, to catch you. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to hold you accountable. So on your developmental disabilities program, the advisory board requests a more coordinated approach to legislators. Well, not sure what that means, because on your agenda also, I can't tap on anything. Can't tap on the FBI information. There's no information. You gave no information for us people to look at, to read about, so that we can speak on, including the disabilities program and the other one that you have. So make sure that when you do coordinate, that the Constitution and color of law are involved as legislators in sanctuary cities and counties, such as Clark County is a sanctuary county. They have professed that they
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else?
Yes, we do. Caller, you've been sent a request to unmute yourself. Please go ahead and do that. State your name for the record and go ahead.
Right, Wendy Cleveland, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. In a presentation by the county staff, we saw the original BRAC agreement between the Army and the county. It states that a certain percentage of the property can be used by civilian citizens for recreation, but only at the time that the cleanup has been completed. The Sheriff Department and the FBI are using it currently under the recreation heading, or at least that was my understanding from the staff presentation. There are two things very wrong with that. One, I would not consider professional training as civilian citizen recreation usage on a conservation property. Number two, the agreement clearly states that the property can only be used for recreation after the cleanup is complete. And as we just heard from the county staff yesterday, or a few meetings ago, the cleanup crew has only just completed a feasibility study for this last year. They haven't actually cleaned it up yet. And they just renewed the contract again to clean it up, so it's not clean. I am asking the council to refer to Ms. Cook for legal advice on this, because it does not seem to be a legal usage, and I feel they need her counsel. The FBI stated in their presentation that they needed to use the facility because there was nowhere else close enough. Well, the Multnomah County Sheriff Department uses Douglas Ridge at Eagle Creek as an outdoor training facility. Why couldn't the Portland FBI use that facility where the Multnomah County Sheriff trains instead of where the Clark County Sheriff trains? I heard their argument that many of their officers live in Vancouver, but just as it is for all other Vancouver residents who choose to work in Oregon, that was their choice. As to their adding to our economy by eating at our restaurants while they are training at Camp Bonneville, if they live here, they do that anyway. It's time to be courageous. May this council return to being men and women of courage. You are all made for so much more than this. To be able to stand in whatever you know to be the truth. Lead with honor, honor that reflects your personal values. Follow the law of the land as it is written. Time to take back your fight, not just listen to ours. In my opinion, there's no left or right. There's right and there's wrong. I know the difference between, and I know you do too. Today, I'm going to ask that you take another critical look at what the law states and what it was intended for, and then seek justice in this matter and stand with your truth in ruling. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, that concludes open public comment. And then we move on to old business. Are there any corrections to the minutes of November 19th, 2025? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. That takes us to the FBI contract. There were two counselors that requested that this be put on the agenda, so it's on the agenda. And I would just point out there is no current contract that the county has with the FBI. But for those counselors who'd like to speak to this issue, now is the opportunity.
I'd be happy to chime in. So I appreciate everybody coming this morning. I think this is a delicate issue in many different ways. And I just want to start, I mean, I heard something to the degree of being pressured by the FBI, but I will set the record straight on that. Since our work session, which the entire intent behind that work session for me was to be able to have the same information come from the FBI to the public and be seen. And that's what took place. And following that, the entirety of my correspondence with the FBI has been one email. So I've not been pressured at all by the FBI to move forward with this. My job as a county councilor is to consider all things. Camp Bonneville and the conservation and the cleanup is an important part that we do, but it's not the only thing. Public safety of the people that live in the county is incredibly important. 70% of our general fund budget goes towards public safety. There's a reason for that, and that's because we prioritize the public safety of our citizens that live here. And I will just say that I agree with a lot of the thoughts and the ideas that have been presented here today or have been given to us in the form of public comments. But I will say that I also see a substantial public benefit to the FBI being able to operate in Clark County. And we will all call that number when we need to call on them. There are criminals and really bad people that could be in our community today if it weren't for the FBI being a partner here in Clark County. So what I would say is the primary reason that I said no to the contract previously was because I didn't feel that the financial terms were favorable to the county. There are other reasons as well, but for the purpose of public safety, I think it would behoove the county to allow at least a temporary term that they can continue to use the facility so that their training is not disrupted with a clear end date for that in the future. And I would suggest, I'm open to council consideration, but I would think 2 years would be a good term with the clear intent that that would be the last contract that we would facilitate with the FBI. Because I do agree that it doesn't really fit the long-term purpose of Camp Bonneville to continue to use it in that manner. And 2 years will give the FBI the time that they need to find other facilities that they could use, but it would buy that bridge that time so that their activities are not disrupted, because I do think it's important that we have trained agents in our community.
Other comments?
Gotcha.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have anything new other than what I've presented during our work session. I too believe that law enforcement training is essential, and this is a unique place to do that. So I want to be able to support that. We allowed the Sheriff's Department a 2-year window for their planning, so they know, to get ready for a potential change in the future. And we don't know what the site will hold, but I think it would also be appropriate to have a 2-year contract so that FBI and other law enforcement all have kind of equal planning horizon to try to find other facilities for the training. We've toured the facility. It seems to be safe. We've heard about all the different things you do to make sure that the training is safe, that you're using the most appropriate firearms and ammunition, and we really appreciate what you do in our community. So at least I would like to continue with a contract. I think we would like to make it clear, though, this time that there'd be no storage of firearms or ammunition at the facility. We understand with training you need targets and hearing protection and all the other spotting scopes and stuff like that. But for firearms and ammunition, I think it would be appropriate to say that you'd have to bring that with you in and out. I know that there are some new security measures that will make check in and check out much more clear to the public. So with that, I think we should also, so I would propose that we have a 2-year contract written up with that clarification, but also clarifying whatever the legal obligations were in the original contract for cleanup responsibilities. And I am not sure exactly what that is, but I think we'd want to make that clear with an end date, so that I think previously there was some kind of agreement that the payment for cleanup wouldn't happen until a later date. And I think we'd want to make that happen at the end of the contract, if not during the contract. So the details would be created as this is drafted up, and this would be for a public meeting in the future for us to vote on. But I would suggest that my motion would be to move forward with a contract, 2-year contract with those stipulations.
I think procedurally, we're providing guidance to the staff, and that if there is a vote at some point in the future, that will be some point in the future.
Sure.
Other comments?
Oh, go ahead. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor. And I agree with almost everything that you said. You mentioned that this is a difficult issue. It really isn't. You mentioned that in 2 years contract, the FBI could potentially leave our facilities. That's not true. This council has oftentimes changed its mind over and over again. For almost 20 years, this facility, these 4,000 acres that belong to the community, has not been cleaned or remediated. Should we wait another 20 years because council changes every couple of years? There's 3 of you that are up for election next year. Some of you may not come back. My concern, I don't care about the past. I don't care that you don't have an agreement. You haven't had an agreement for 3 years. My concern is that we're not doing anything now or for the future of those 4,000 acres that belong to Clark County residents. I've got nothing against the FBI, against the ATF, against the Sheriff's Department. I couldn't care less about you're the director of the FBI, but I've got nothing against law enforcement. I do certainly believe that we need to support law enforcement. However, the FBI is an agency with over $11 billion of budget this year. You could figure out where to train that does not include Camp Bonneville. I completely oppose. I think it's irresponsible that this council is considering signing an agreement again with the FBI, despite the fact that there has been widespread community opposition. We have received dozens and dozens of letters and public comments over the last few months. Not one has been in support of the FBI. They've all been against the FBI using our facility. So I think that it's time. I think that we start taking action now and move forward to give back those 4,000 acres of conservation area back to Clark County residents. And so I am completely opposed in signing an agreement with the FBI.
Okay, if you could restrain from clapping out of fairness. Councillor Belcott, did you have anything you wanted to say? Okay.
No, nothing.
Councillor Young.
Just one thing I would add, I think, just to add to what Councillor Little said, I think we do need to be made whole for the previous contract as well as a fair amount for the future 2 years that we have any agreement with them potentially. So that would be something that I would need to sure. And again, the same thing, that it's not dependent on any cleanup process happening, but at the end of the contract, it will simply be due. And then I would say, I believe that if you ask the people of Clark County if it's in their best interest that there's a trained FBI nearby, I think they would agree that that's important. So yes, there are emails coming in that are opposed, but I will say the vast majority of people don't know that they need to be chimed into this issue that we're discussing today.
Councillor Young, nearby could mean anywhere outside of Camp Bonneville. It doesn't have to be Camp Bonneville. That belongs to the community members of Clark County, not law enforcement. And it's about time that we take the steps necessary to ensure that our community members enjoy the recreational benefits of Camp Bonneville that was gifted to this community by the United States Army in 2006. Almost 20 years, and we're still dealing with this.
And we will
We'll deal with it another 20 years if we don't make decisions now.
I agree with you, but we're still at least likely a decade away from having the public be able to participate.
We have to start at some point. If we start in 10 years, there's another decade. If we start in 20 years, then there's another decade. At some point, we have to start, and it needs to happen sooner than later.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I think it's difficult to conjecture when things may be open or not, or what the general public might say.
Chair.
Oh, Councillor Belcott, you go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Hey, I just want to make a comment after those last comments. CCSO, we're responsible for their salaries and hopefully to make sure and ensure that all their training is appropriated and allocated and that we support them. And they they are Clark County Sheriff's Department. They train at Camp Bonneville, which is the county's property. They get to train for free because it is the county's property. As a former armed force member for 25 years, I had to qualify multiple times a year, and you can't unfortunately do it just anywhere. I think it's great that we can allow them to do it for free so it doesn't eat into our general fund budget, which is a major issue, as we all know from the last few weeks. So I would just remember that CCSO support them. They are part of Clark County. They are law enforcement, but they are part of the county. And I will tell you, I just was talking to several other constituents earlier today that wants more law enforcement, and I was getting them actually involved in some of my constituent concerns. Thank you.
Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
Just for the record, I want to make sure that community members and CSO knows that I support CCSO utilizing the facility. I'm on record saying that the last time we had this deliberation. What I'm against is other federal agents, particularly federal agencies, utilizing our facilities when we need to start the cleanup and remediation so that the conservation area is returned back to our community members.
And cleanup takes forever. As a military member, being familiar with BRACs and cleanups, they take a very long time. This is not going to be an overnight thing. There are a lot of unknowns, which is why there are sealed parts of Camp Bonneville. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's already taken a long time. I would just say, because it appears there may be 3 counselors who want to move this forward for consideration. But my position has not changed. And I think when you're looking at public safety, you can look at it from various angles. And I know it was the 12,000 rounds that were stolen and the ability to really make Camp Bonneville secure that are concerns for me. And that's not been resolved. And I think it's very much a disservice to the public when the council, on these issues that are really at the core of what people care about, that we are flip-flopping in our decision-making. If we make a decision, if you don't have all the information, let's delay talking about it till you get the information you need. Get the information you need, let's discuss it, and let's make a decision. But a decision was made, the public came in, the FBI came in, we've talked about this, so I just feel like the public deserves an apology for having to go through this yet again. And you'll go through it yet again when this comes back, which it probably will come back in January for during one of our council meetings. So, and ultimately, and I think also that what reassurance does the public have at this point when we say, oh, well, we'll just do 2 more years or we'll just do this, that's going to be the case. I think, the trust really has been broken here, and I regret that. So my position has not changed, but I don't know. Does the county manager have all the information you need to make move this forward or not?
I have not heard 3 counselors support that, so I would need to make sure that we have a majority of that support moving it forward first.
Counselors, are there 3 of you?
Yeah, I'm in support of drafting something for our consideration. Yes.
I as well.
Yes.
There's 3.
And then if I could ask additional clarification, I did hear, do you want to see the contract that was before you, but when the council voted that down to include updated language with regards to the cost recovery and cleanup and a 2-year term?
Yeah,
I'm interested.
I think
Oh,
more
I'm sorry, Jen.
information will be good. Thanks. We agree, Councilor Belcott.
I just want to make sure that we're looking at the newer contract that had been negotiated and not falling back to the original one that.
Correct.
Okay.
And I would also say addressing some of the concerns that we have expressed when we were looking at our ATF and all that. So as he had mentioned, no storage and, things like that we've made clear that are important to us.
Okay, so I would recommend that our staff will work on, we'll take that original one that was before council, mark it up with track changes, and we can bring that back to a council time first to get the initial input. And then if council agrees at that point, we can put on a Tuesday meeting for final consideration. Is that acceptable to council?
I think it's acceptable to 3 of the counselors.
I'm what versus just putting on a Tuesday meeting for final consideration. So that way, if I just want to make sure that we're capturing what the majority of the council wants, and
that would be good to bring it back
Okay.
for us to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, new business, Alan Thomas draft resolution.
Good afternoon, Council. For the record, Jordan Bogie, Senior Policy Analyst. As per Council's direction from a couple weeks ago before Thanksgiving, there was a request to put together a resolution remembering the life and contributions of Alan Thomas, who was a longtime resident of Clark County and outdoor writer at the Columbian. And so would present to you here today for your consideration a draft resolution. If there are any edits or comments, would accept those. And then to see if council is interested in moving this forward, we would put on a Tuesday meeting early in the new year. And then also if there is a counselor who would be interested in reading it, wanting to make sure we have that as well.
Counselors?
Sure.
Yep.
I'm so appreciative of what you put together. It's beautiful. I do want to disconnect this conversation from the last one we had. There, Alan deserves that. Close friend of mine, as well as many people here. He should not be mixed up with the conversation that we just had. Alan's close friends came to us with a proposal of how to, before he had passed, of how to respect his legacy. And they had a specific request. And our staff are working on that response. And that is the staff are actually going out of their way to secure a park bench in a place that Alan would love. That was their request for Alan. And so we are working on that, even though we don't have the policy that allows that. So one of the additional things that we're requesting as part of this process is that we would, in January, consider the policy that we have to take to be able to dedicate a park bench in a place that Alan would love. So that is what we're doing, along with this resolution that I asked. And I am just really impressed with this. I think it really honors his, he was everything that people said up there. And we've covered this before, but I'm just really thankful for this. And I'd be honored to read it, but also if anyone else wants to.
Okay, any other comments from anyone? Go ahead.
Did not know him, but he sounds like a wonderful person and worthy of being honored with this. So I'm certainly supportive of the proclamation. I think it would be appropriate that you read it. And I know we didn't want to go back to the other conversation, but some of the comments, I think when we get to that point with Camp Bonneville, I think that renaming is a consideration. I don't know, but the time's not here, but I did hear those comments.
Yeah, thank you. I heard it too. I just heard it mixed into political. It was mixed with politics, but just by the nature of the discussion, and Alan doesn't deserve that.
I think, I didn't know Alan very long, but Alan served on the Camp Bonneville committee along with some of you. And I met with Alan because of Camp Bonneville. And I would just have to say, I think Alan would be delighted that his name is getting merged with the Camp Bonneville issue because it was very important to him. So I don't have any problem with that at all. And I think I would prefer to be open to what we might want to honor in terms of a dedication. I don't know if a bench is the appropriate thing, or I know there were a number of his colleagues from the Columbian that brought this forward to us, and I would like to hear from them as well on what would be the appropriate thing. I think one thing Alan mentioned when this was brought up to him is that, well, I'll still be dead. So, which is the reality of it. Anyway, I'd be happy to read the proclamation and be supportive of this.
Yeah. And again, I'm not closed-minded to any of that stuff. I'm just trying to honor what his friends request in an official, formal request to us, and that is what we're doing to honor him. In the future, we can do other things. I just think this discussion today is mixed with politics, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, so I think that's thumbs up on this one. Okay.
Sue, you can read it.
Okay, I'll read it. Thank you. And thanks to his colleagues for bringing this to our attention. Okay. Moving on, Developmental Disability Advisory Board Legislative Priorities. So Jordan, I think that's you.
Yes, thank you, Council. This is me again. So I know we had the opportunity to meet earlier this week with most of Council and with Bob Friedland, who you heard here in public comment, the Vice Chair of the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board, as well as Trish Buescher, who supports them on the staff side. And The Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board has helpfully put together some of their legislative priorities for the upcoming 2026 session. And they would like to see if council is interested in adopting some or all of these as legislative priority items of interest for the upcoming session. And so I'm just going to give you a real quick summary here of what those priorities are. And then we can have some conversation, and Bob and Trish are here in the audience if there are more technical questions about some of these priorities that I may not have all the details for. So they're also available if council has those further questions. But looking at their 2026 priorities, you'll see them here in bold on the screen. And the first one is to protect Medicaid and existing funding streams. As we know, Medicaid is the primary pathway for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities to access their supports for daily living, employment, respite, and community inclusion. There are federal budget changes coming down the pipe. The HR 1 that was passed recently will be cutting Medicaid dollars that are coming into the state. And the state is also in a challenging fiscal position itself. But the first and biggest priority they have is to ask the legislature to maintain and protect funding streams that already exist, so that there's not further erosion in these supportive services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Without those supports, that could cause folks to face isolation and have poor health outcomes, lose stability for families. And folks who are working now may have to get pulled out of the workforce to become caregivers for family members who rely on Medicaid and some of these safety net programs. The second priority is supporting provider rates to reflect actual costs and implement recommendations that have come out of rate studies related to costs of services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Particularly, there's interest in working to protect funding for children ages 0 to 5, which, early childhood interventions are really critical to folks' long-term success, as well as special education services and those receiving services through IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and to safeguard early childhood investments at the state level, to implement some different budget forecasting for developmental disabilities services. And actually, so the Developmental Disabilities Community Services Agency, it's the only state agency that does not use the budget forecasting adjustment to look at inflation and other economic impacts. So that's something where they'd like to be in line with what other state agencies are doing. They would like to, find efforts to increase funding for inclusive and affordable housing, which I think is in line with some council's priorities that we've talked about before. There is interest in working to abolish restraint, seclusion, and isolation practices in schools. Another priority is to address gaps in services for people who have been underserved, and to develop aging adult services for those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. A lot of times you've got folks who have intellectual or developmental disabilities. Maybe their parents are caring for them, their parents are aging, and you have aging caregivers or folks who want to change where they live. And so developing some of these services would include things like employment, housing, residential supports, transportation, financial planning, and long-term sustainable care and coordination of services over the lifetime for folks. And so if council is supportive of adding these to our legislative priority bucket, what that would mean from a practical matter is I would work with our lobbyists to track bills related to some of these issues, and we would bring them up in our normal Monday conversation or Wednesday policy updates, as I do typically during the session. But this also might give us the ability, if you would like to support these, to be a little bit nimble if, for instance, we heard on Thursday that there's a hearing on a Friday about the state wanting to cut Medicaid dollars for intellectual and developmental disability services or lower the rate. We could log in as sign in to the hearing as opposed to that bill because council has given their assent. So this isn't going to, we wouldn't be working on a particular bill, but adoption of these priorities, if council wanted to do that, would help us be a little bit more nimble in these particular areas. Or if council only wanted to adopt some of these as part of our portfolio for what we're tracking, we could do that as well. And so, yeah, open the floor to any questions or conversation from council. And as I said, we've got a couple folks if there are more technical questions.
Councilors,
Sure.
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Councilor Belcott.
I'm just wondering, Jordan, are we supposed to be fleshing this out right now as far as our questions related to these priorities?
Yeah, if you have any questions right now, happy to, I can take a swing, and then we've got a couple folks from the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board that can help answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I guess my only question is the abolish restraint, seclusion, and isolation in schools. I mean, that's a paraeducator thing. I don't feel comfortable including that particular bullet in there because we're not paras. We don't understand. I mean, I don't know if I feel comfortable with that particular bullet in there.
Which one was that again?
The abolish restraint, seclusion, and isolation in schools. I mean, there are situations. I have some friends that are paras, and there are situations when some of that has to happen in order for kids to calm down in whatever disability is associated. I just don't feel, I'm not a doctor, and that one in particular, I don't feel comfortable with including that.
I think this is one worthy of finding out more information because I think there's varying degrees about how these can be applied or misapplied. So to the degree to which they may be being misapplied or useful as techniques would be, I'd like to know more information about that before I take a position.
Thanks, Chair. Would you like, I could invite Trish and Bob up to talk a little bit now, or if council would like, I can follow up with more information.
I don't know, would you be ready or prepared, or we can follow up at a time in the future? But if you have some thoughts right now, please come forward.
And Chair, just to add to it, some other questions that I might have for either of you. Are there any bills that we already know are coming next year that are related to some of your requests that we should keep our eye on?
Okay, thank you. So I'll just respond to the first question and then maybe Bob.
And if you could just identify
Oh,
yourself
hi.
for the
Yes.
record.
My name is Patricia Bisher. I'm the program manager for the Clark County Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board and staff to the Developmental Disabilities Program and staff to the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board. Thanks. I'll answer or respond to the first question, and we would be happy to gather more information and bring it back to council on the issue of abolishing restraint, seclusion, and isolation in schools. One of the priorities of the and values of the Developmental Disabilities Advisory Board is inclusion for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And our advisory board has been very concerned about the isolation and seclusion and restraint of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our local schools. So I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to add to that or.
I think that the component that was there was attempts at legislation over the last few years, and what you heard was a need to educate professionals to make alternative plans for disruptive students. There is no doubt that given the ratios in the classroom, it's very, very difficult. However, the simple answer of saying, do we support the current status of the way that behaviors are being attended to, I think that the advisory board is very concerned that statewide there's no real educational alternatives for those that are providing those services in the public schools. So it's a conversation that you would be supporting, not necessarily a legislative ideal. And plus, this is the alternate year, so they're really working on fiscal policy. But if it does come up, we always like to remind the legislators the importance of moving forward into expanding options for the classroom rather than saying we're just going to let the behaviors grow, or vice versa, that we're going to continue with the types of solutions that have been used in the past. And we'd like to see some changes to that.
Right. Maybe the word abolish is a little too strong here. It could be training and guidance, assure that that is available. Just a suggestion. Yep. Additional thoughts or questions, or did you have more comments that you'd like to make?
I know Councilor Little, you had a question, but I don't know if we responded to it.
Just whether there was legislation on the horizon that you know of that you would like our help supporting.
Last session, there was an effort that this council supported, and that legislation would have removed community inclusion services from the county programs to be contracted with the state directly. There was widespread opposition from the Association of County Human Services and the Washington State Association of Counties, and I believe this county council as well. So I'm not sure if that will come back again. Hopefully that maybe has gone away for permanently. But as of right now, we don't know. There haven't been any bills that are specific to that we're specifically tracking yet.
Other
Okay,
comments?
thank you.
Did you have more?
I was just wondering if we could support this in general, making a note about the word abolish, and maybe with the goal of that we would support actions to reduce or look at different strategies. That was just an idea I have.
Good idea. Other comments? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would support that. And I think, this just gives Jordan a way to hop into a meeting if there's something that comes up. I am certain that if there's something where we have more time, it would still come to us in our legislative update meetings or whatnot. So this is just giving him kind of a guidance on what he can do in between those meetings. But I did also want to comment, and I appreciate the conversation that we had. And we're talking about potentially taking the affordable housing funds. And one of the things that I think that we ought to consider when we're looking at that is specific to the developmental disability community and providing funding specifically, proportions for that. And one of the things that we talked about was, because I had asked what the inclusive part was about housing. And, we had this great discussion about how individuals, where their placement is, can have a large impact on how their life is. And I think finding a way to get those individuals that are capable of living on their own into communities that are healthy and robust, and they have neighbors that are willing to support. So I don't know if we can get there, but I'm supportive of when we move through that process that we look at earmarking some dollars to the development and disability community. And we'll have that discussion later. But I appreciated the thoughts that you sparked during our conversation.
And perhaps we could just add accessible to the housing line, affordable and accessible.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the list? And it is a broad list. And I just remind people that during the legislative session, we meet weekly with our lobbyists. And so if there are specific bills that come up that you are aware of, you could make us aware of that. And this then would give some guidance to our lobbyists on the types of things to be looking out for. And then every week we'll have an opportunity to really weigh in on any specific legislation that comes up.
Chair.
Yes.
Just want to comment that, first of all, thank you, Patricia. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Bob. Yeah, thank you so much for the work that you do for vulnerable community members. I support this 100%. I'm particularly supportive, of course, of protecting Medicaid and existing funding streams, right? And that last bullet point, developing aging adult services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. I've done a little bit of work with a couple of nonprofits who work with folks with IDD. And one of the things that I hear on a regular basis is the concern of parents who are aging and having to continue to support their adult children when it can be extremely challenging, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so I think that is an incredibly important bullet point for these folks. So thank you for bringing this to our attention, and I can support this 100%.
Great. Do you need any more feedback from us?
Can I just give you a brief summary of what I understand the guidance to be and make sure I've got a thumbs up from the whole council?
That's a great idea.
Wonderful. So I'm hearing that council generally supports, adding these legislative priorities to the county's priority list of items we're going to be looking at and supporting, with the caveats that we would like to not say abolish restraint, seclusion, and isolation in schools, but rather there's an interest in perhaps anything that might be related to training or guidance around restraint, seclusion, and isolation. And, it sounds like an interest in maybe reducing that. But if there were a bill that comes up, we're kind of interested in that piece, and that we would also like to add accessible to the housing portion. So that would be the fourth from last bullet, increase funding for accessible, inclusive, affordable housing.
I think you've got it. Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, do you feel like that captures the intent behind your thoughts on this? I just want to check and make sure.
I am very enthusiastic to have heard from the council. I'm thrilled to hear that the conversations that we've had during these tough fiscal times is so wonderful to hear that there's still a real focus in Clark County to be inclusive with every member of Clark County. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your work on this, both of you. Okay, we're going to be moving on then. Policy priorities, scope of work. It sounds like it just got bigger.
Yeah, so when council was discussing the affordable housing tax that you'll be considering next year, we did talk about setting policy priorities and some strategic planning with council next year, and the possibility of using a facilitator to help with that. And so what I wanted to do is bring back the scope of work that would be included in that work and make sure that that is in alignment with council's desire. I put these into 3 phases. The first one is for facilitation and discussion resulting in council policy priorities. And then the second phase would be the facilitator taking those priorities and going and working with our department heads to identify and summarize existing funding, legal parameters, council prior policy direction, and current commitments such as contracts, identify any new funding that may be available, and also options for existing alternative and or new funding and commitments to align with the council policy priorities, and develop annual work plans. And then the third phase would be bringing that back to council. I know there was a desire to really look at a comprehensive, like, what is all of our funding? Where is it dedicated to? I've already got a first draft of a document that I'll be working with department heads of identifying policy decisions that council has. But I think having, if we have 3 different revenue streams coming in, that all of them could support affordable housing, for example, then that could be council's desire to say, yes, we all want to do this. But I think it's also important to understand that some of the funding has restrictions or already current commitments with contracts. So having that comprehensive look under the council policy priorities. The hope is that when council decides on policy priorities, that really provides the guardrails for how we work in the next year and above and beyond our day-to-day work that we do in operations, and that it can be a focused effort, and that will also be supported through the budget process as well. So just want to make sure I'm not missing anything on this. I am also looking at options. I know that there's, the city of Vancouver has some contracts already with some facilitators. I know Echo had used one that might be sufficient and, supportive of this type of process. I've not reached out to anybody yet because I wanted to make sure the scope was in alignment with your
Counselors, go ahead.
Yes, what is timing on this? And the reason I ask is I was first able to look at this morning, just given the nature of our workload. And I think this sounds great, but I haven't really had time to digest it and see if there might be anything missing from it. So would it be a big slowdown if we don't give you direction today?
I just won't move forward with issuing out a bid or making phone calls or anything like that. It can certainly come back in January. Just want to be timely with council.
Yeah.
But certainly we can talk about it early next year.
Well, I really don't want to slow it down, but I'm also,
You want to think about it a little bit more?
yeah, I just want to make sure we're thorough on this. I think this is really important, really critical.
Other thoughts? Yeah, my reaction, I think this is very good, but I think that we're in very dynamic times in terms of things that are happening at the federal level, just the thought of Medicaid and the impact that will have throughout our community. Council policy priorities, I think there may be information we need in looking at the broader picture about what's coming at us that we need to be thinking about and how can we be strategic. So I don't know who can guide us on that, but I think it's worth taking a step back to look at a bigger picture.
And that could just be the phase one part of this. I mean,
It
it's
could
a
be.
simple sentence there, but I think it's more comprehensive than that sentence, obviously, yes, because it's to get feedback from you. It's, we can ask departments for feedback on, what they're seeing so that you have that.
What's keeping them up at night?
Right. And I will say state funding is a huge concern. I think there was communication that there's going to be cuts. And that is, so we do have departments that are closely watching that as well. I mean, that is going to impact potentially some of our services.
Yeah, and I think in the process of looking at that, because it looks initially quite dire, what guides us as we're moving, as this starts hitting us.
Yeah.
I think we need to figure that out.
And, something that I can do as well. So I know I mentioned that I've got a document by department and then there's countywide policy. So countywide policy would be like budget. But there's by department, I've been identifying policy decisions that council makes because you guys make decisions every week. Every decision you make is a policy decision. And just to capture that, I think that also can help spark the conversation of like, oh, we do this. And, but it would be, and I think Councilor Little said, it always feels like we're on a reaction. Everything's an emergency. But that's also coming from what you're hearing from your constituents being brought up at council time. And then we're scrambling to, help figure out a letter for DNR or whatever. And so anything that we can plan for is great. Things are going to happen and we have to be flexible and be able to adjust. I mean, that's part of our work every day. And it would be helpful to, I know this is a short legislative session coming up, but as you're looking at future ones, having the overarching policy kind of guidance for that as well is helpful, especially for those items that may come up between meetings that we could get like, yes, if it's anything regarding this, we're supportive or whatever. So.
Great.
Sure.
Just off the bat, healthcare system and housing are looming.
So what about, well, I can send it before the first meeting or first council time next year. I can send that department policy. So that would hit every policy decision that you're making for the county at a high level. So at least you have that information. And then do you want to revisit this at that time? I just want to be timely because I think Councilor Young, you wanted this on board before you have the discussion on the tax. And when is
that coming up?
The first week.
of January?
The 6th of January, because it has to be done by the 17th, 18th in order for the collection to start the second quarter.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm still a little bit. I mean, this is great, and I appreciate that you expanded from, or you advised expanding from just the affordable housing tax. But I also am a little bit leery that we may not be focusing quite enough on that, because this is a lot more kind of broad policy making.
Yeah, well, that's what I had recommended and council gave direction on for this scope, but I think it's going to hit what you're looking for. I think identifying those funds, what they're eligible for, what they're committed for, what the restrictions are in one place is going to be helpful, because then you can see, because I think that's what you're really looking at too, is opioid funding, because we do.
Yes.
Council gave direction. There's a document that actually shows all the direction council gave, and have that listed as well, because you may want to change that in order to support one program or one project out of different funding sources.
Okay. I mean, I feel like I appreciate this work. I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, and I'm happy to see it moving forward. And if you feel like it's captured what the majority of us have asked for, then I feel confident moving it forward. What does the remainder of the council feel?
Let's hear from Councilor Belcott. I don't want to leave you out.
I'm fine with the delay so we can discuss this a little more.
Other councilors?
And I can bring that policy document and try to get something set up. I was going to have the facilitator help with this, but they're going to have to ask department heads anyway, of the spreadsheet that would show the funding, the restrictions. I mean, we have that information from staff, so I can get both of those done and bring it back, and then see how you want to integrate the facilitator if you want to at that point to discuss your policy.
Yeah, I feel like this captures things well enough to inform hiring a facilitator. So I would like to see it move forward personally. So that's my opinion.
If I may, there's one thing that I kind of would like to add, and that would be really looking for outside the box uses of the funds as well. So looking at multiple different communities to seeing what kind of new ideas are, they're taking action with, just not looking at traditional uses. I mean, we know the legal parameters, but within those legal parameters, there are lots of different ways that you can use those things, but just kind of maybe highlight in some way that we're looking for new innovative possibilities for use of the funds as well.
Would that be result oriented? Because there's plenty of things outside the box, but I think if you want to tie it to certain results.
I think what I don't want to exclude is, I mean, I've said this multiple times from the dais, is that best practice, we say that term best practice, and it changes over time. So what used to be best practice is not considered best practice anymore. And so there might be ideas, innovative ways that there's not really a whole lot of data behind that would prove results, but I don't want to restrict us from at least seeing those ideas and being able to consider them.
Well, and I think we will be interacting with this process throughout. So I think all of your concerns and more can be brought up throughout the process. But
that's the ones that I'm aware of. That's what I'm hoping for, is somebody to look for the things that we aren't aware of.
All right. Other thoughts down there?
Yeah, I'm okay with moving forward. I think it's a great idea to plan, and I think it's a great idea to have a facilitator help us plan, and we will decide as we go along what our priorities are and what questions we have and what we need to prioritize. So, yeah, I think we all have the intent that we'd like to have a facilitator and plan. I think we could get moving on it.
I can support that.
Okay.
So we're supportive of moving forward with looking at a facilitator for this scope of work, knowing that we'll have more details, especially during the phase one. Is that correct?
Yep. I think there's thumbs up if that's the direction you want to go.
Okay, and I'll be looking at the financial commitment for that as well. So that may be coming to a Tuesday meeting. They'll be taken out of fund balance to pay for that. But I got to get some costing first for this. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, counselor reports.
Chair, I
Go
have one.
ahead.
I have one counselor reported. I watched a portion of the City of Vancouver's City Council meeting that took place on Monday, and the part specifically regarding CTRAN and the composition board. And I'm not sure exactly how we move forward. I think the entirety of the council at this point is aware of the action that the composition review board took, and that was to take the 432, but then there were a couple stipulations. City of Vancouver discussed that issue in length.
I guess before you go on at very much length, we'll have an opportunity to talk about that at greater length in our agenda.
Okay.
I promise you.
All right.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Belcott.
I just have one thing. I just wanted to correct the record. Yesterday, when I voted to support the budget, I could not hear, just like the beginning of this meeting and some of the others. I did not mean to vote for nay. I was a yes, I was a nay. I just wanted to put that out there on the record.
Was that on the overall budget?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Is there a process for us to do that, or just it'll be on the record that your intention was to vote nay instead of yay?
Yes.
Yes. Did you want to add?
Yeah, Chair, there isn't really a process at this point to change the counselor's vote unless she intends to ask to renew the vote and she gets a majority of the council supporting that renewal request. But she can't at this point say, this does not reflect my intention, and have her vote then change. This clarifies what her intentions are on the record.
Okay, Councillor Belcott, was that clear to you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so you've just placed on the record that your intention, what your intention was, but there's not really a way to change the actual vote that occurred.
Today.
I think, I'm not sure what you mean by today.
I could correct it during the minutes.
No, it can't be corrected during the minutes. And, unless you made a motion to renew the issue and we would take a vote again on the budget, but I can tell you I have zero interest in doing that at this point. I think your best solution is just as a record as part of the council report for today, that it can be documented in the minutes that your intent may have been to vote no yesterday.
My intention is not to revisit the budget at all. It was just to correct my final vote for the record.
And that cannot be done by changing the minutes to have them say something that didn't happen. You have now stated what your intention was, and I think very clearly, but the minutes have to say what occurred.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are there other councillor reports? No other councillor reports. So
I just wanted to add on that last piece as well, that the minutes with the clarification is going to be tied to this meeting and not yesterday. So it'll be clarified with Councillor Belcott's intention
with these minutes.
with this council time minutes. Yes,
Thank you for that. Okay, work session request.
none today.
I have one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so related to the cleanup at Bonneville. Oh,
I
What?
think just following our informal process,
Yeah.
I think that shouldn't we have two counselors put that on an agenda in the future so that the public has an opportunity to provide input?
oh, okay.
That's good. And unless it's time sensitive, is this request time sensitive?
And that
I don't think so. I think we could do it that way. Yeah.
you can certainly ask if there's a second counselor willing to put it on the next council time agenda for
That's what I was
consideration.
intending to do right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. There's public meetings going on right now with Department of Ecology's periodic update, and there's one coming up in Hawkinson. I have a conflict with that meeting, but I think it would be really helpful if Department of Ecology came here and gave us a presentation about it. I know there's lots of questions about the cleanup, what's legally required, what's happened, what hasn't, what's how long it will take. So I think it would be, I'm wondering if another counselor thinks it would be a good idea to have Department of Ecology give us an update so we can ask some questions.
I would certainly support that.
Yes, can I?
Okay, there's three there, so we'll bring that up. And I just note that I've got a notebook about this thick related to the cleanup of Camp Bonneville. So if anyone wants to take a little time during the break to bring some questions forward, that'd be great. Okay, no other work session requests. Policy updates.
Yes, thank you, Council. For the record, Jordan Bogie, Senior Policy Analyst. I have one here on the agenda and then just a couple other short updates that have just come up in the last day or two that I'd like to give you as well. So the first one here, 8.1, Continuum of Care funding. I wanted to give you an update. I had a conversation with some of our community services staff as well as some of the staff from Council for the Homeless. And historically, HUD, so the Federal Housing Urban Development Agency, has provided local governments and local homeless providers and coordinators funds to provide the homeless system continuum of care services. And Clark County has typically received about $2.1 million a year from these programs from the federal government. And historically, about 90% of that has gone to support permanent supportive housing. So this is affordable housing for those, at the very lowest income bands. They may have, those are folks potentially with intellectual developmental disabilities or those who need other intensive supports who, may have trouble living on their own. The new HUD rules that have come down for the continuum of care stipulate that you can only spend up to 30% of the funds that come into the county through HUD on permanent supportive housing. So typically we've spent 90% of those funds on permanent supportive housing. Now there is a maximum amount we could spend of 30%. So that is going to represent at least 2/3 of the funding that has gone to the continuum of care for permanent supportive housing is going to be gone. My also understanding from Council for the Homeless is that HUD has basically not been responsive to them or to other entities in other states asking the feds for more guidance. The rules are very vague right now. And there is also a process. So this money doesn't come to the county directly. It basically funnels in. Council for the Homeless does a competitive solicitation, and then providers of these services, basically put in RFP responses for this funding. And they basically have to run this competitive bid process by the end of the year to, by January 14th, submit that information to the federal government. It's a very fast timeline. They have been given very little information. The federal government has been sued by a couple of different entities, so there are also some lawsuits floating around in the mix. But the upshot of this essentially is that the federal government is trying to move away from permanent supportive housing. It is not something the current administration believes in, and moving towards a more transitional housing model. So housing that may be only temporary, trying to get people into different permanent supportive housing, or just giving them a brief period of support, as well as treatment, whether involuntary or not. If we lose the current funding that it's projected that we'll lose somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 56 permanent supportive housing beds in the county, which is about 15% of our county capacity for permanent supportive housing beds. So it's fairly significant. And there will be more information to come, but our community services folks are worried about this. Council for the Homeless is worried about this. Those who are providing services are worried about this. And $2.1 million in the grand scheme of everything is not a huge amount, but there also will be knock-on impacts to, Portland and Multnomah County also seeing the same kind of issues, right? King County, that's Spokane County, other places that get more of this funding are going to see this be gone. And so just wanted to raise for council, especially as we're thinking about sort of a strategic plan for how council wants to use various funds. We're seeing, state dollars dry up. We're seeing federal dollars dry up. And there is some ability for local dollars to fill in the gaps to different degrees. And so that's something that you all are going to need to consider as we move into the new year. And based on what folks are hearing, it is likely that the federal government will continue to move away from supporting these kinds of services. And so, and that's even before we get to the cuts to Medicaid that are coming down the pipe. So it's a kind of a grim picture of funding, but I just wanted to make you aware of the issue if you hear from folks, and that this is something that we are paying attention to and exploring. This is going to be probably the dominant topic at ECHO next week. And so we'll be talking with representatives from the rest of the county about this, as well as folks from Council for the Homeless, VHA, other service providers, to see kind of if they have more information about what's going on, and what potential options council has essentially to react to it. And so not a fun update for me to give, but I just wanted to make sure that you're kind of aware, because we've got folks in the community raising the alarm.
And if I could add, there's one extra element to this, and that is, it takes time for these programs to develop. And so a sudden shift in how the funding needs to be spent will lead likely to the inability to spend it all right away. And along with that comes the argument, well, if you're not able to spend it, you don't need it. So there's also that little part of it that is of concern.
But they're taking away 2.1 million.
So as I understand it, the 2.1 million is still going to come to the county.
Oh, we just can't spend it.
But
in
it
this
can't be
particular
used
way.
for permanent supportive housing. And because historically we've used, well, I say we, but I really mean providers in the county have used 90% of this funding for permanent supportive housing. It's just going to require either a really fast shift from folks, or, as Councilor Young indicated, we could lose out on the money if folks are unable to provide the new programming that's very different than what the previous program parameters were.
And there needs to be a report to the feds by January 14th.
Yes, basically Council for the Homeless, they run the competitive solicitation for these funds. They need to get that done, I believe, by January 1st or early in the year, to then submit that information to HUD so that those monies can come down.
Okay, and what's the funding? I mean, was it meeting the full need for permanent supportive housing, or what was the gap in, if there was one?
I do believe there's still a gap in terms of the need for permanent supportive housing in the community. I can look and see if I can get some information for you on what that gap is, but losing this, losing 50 or 60 beds would certainly be a blow to our current capacity.
Other comments from council? I think the reality is there's a need to have permanent supportive housing. There are people that need that permanently.
Yes, and we could probably sit here and talk about this all day because I think there are a lot of nuances. We could also talk about the comp plan and what we need to provide in terms of the 0 to 30% AMI, but we won't get into all that now. But I just wanted to make sure that you're kind of aware of this issue generally.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anything else?
Couple more for you.
Okay.
The first one is that yesterday, while you all were working on the budget, Department of Natural Resources, Board of Natural Resources met, and both the timber sales that were up for review by the Board of Natural Resources did get approved, so they will be moving forward to auction. That is the Dendrophobia timber sale, which was the subject of council's letter, as well as the Copperhead timber sale, which council removed from their letter, but both were approved by the Board of Natural Resources. They will be moving forward. I don't have any more details than that, but I hope to go back and review that meeting at some point here in the next couple of weeks.
That just reminds me to wonder about the status of having our junior taxing districts that benefit, bringing that group together and figuring that out, and what the breakdown would be as far as revenue going to those junior taxing districts would be worthwhile. And I know a Battleground School District is going out again for a levy, and I thought I'd just let them know that this a levy would help them get even additional resources.
Thanks, Jerry. I am meeting with folks from DNR next week to talk about how they've set up groups with junior taxing districts in other counties. So I'll be working with them to learn a little bit how they structured those to bring back some ideas to council, as well as some ideas around a forestry advisory group or task force. There's been a lot going on, but the wheels are still moving, and I hope to present some more information to that early in the new year to council.
Great, thanks. Anything else?
Just a little bit more. Just wanted to mention again, I know we're at the end of the year. This is last council meeting. The legislative session begins on January 12th. So council will have a couple of meetings that first week of January, but then that next week, the legislative session will begin. It's going to be a short 60-day session. The state has significant fiscal headwinds that they are facing, and so that's going to be kind of the dominant theme of what we're looking at. Please check your emails for any pre-session updates over the next few weeks while you're off. And then I'll also be reaching out, working with Michelle to schedule a time on Mondays for council to meet with our lobbyists to do our weekly review session and find a time that works best for all of council. I know this year, early in the year, we had some councilors who had a tough time making all the meetings. So I'm going to try to do my best to schedule something that works for everybody. I know you've got a lot going on. So I'll do that. And then one final item. We have gotten a request from the good folks at the Liquor and Cannabis Board at the state level. This just came in like today, to see if council would be interested on a presentation on House Bill 1515, which passed earlier this year. What it does is it allows for expanded outdoor service for liquor licensees. So if you have a liquor license, you have a brewery or something, this allows for, and this is at council's discretion, and it would be in the unincorporated area for council's purview, for expanded outdoor service. And I think part of the intention behind this bill was to allow for like a fan area, or if you wanted to have a big party for the World Cup, because there are games in Seattle, that you could serve alcohol at a big event. I like I said, we just got this today, so I don't have all the details, but if council's interested in learning more, the good folks from the Liquor and Cannabis Board have offered to come and present at some point to council if that's something you'd like to learn more about.
I would be curious if this would impact, I know, and I can't remember all the details of it, but I know that this has been kind of an issue with some of the, some of the land in the rural area and having, events and stuff and on their property. So I don't know if it would impact that or not.
It's a good opportunity to ask those questions. I'd be interested in learning what that expansion, so temporary expansion would look like, particularly during the World Cup, when a lot of people spend money on alcohol. And I mean, we'd like sales taxes. So I think I'd like to hear from them.
I have an idea.
Okay, well, I'm hearing at least two, and as per kind of council's process, we will put this forward at an upcoming council time as like a full work session request, and we'll all work through what the details might look like to bring that request to council.
Okay, I'm game.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
I just have a question about process on that. This is one request from one interest about one bill. Any legislative session, I mean, they've introduced thousands of bills in a session. I'm just wondering if we grant a work session for every, the precedent that this might set is that anyone comes to us and asks for a meeting, they might get a work session on their specialty bill. So I just want to think a little bit more before we do that, because the normal process might be going to our lobbyist. Our lobbyist presents us. Isn't that a public meeting when we meet with the lobbyist?
It is.
The lobbyist presents us with all the potential bills. We talk about them. He gets all the answers. And then we decide which ones are a priority. I think that might be more efficient, knowing that we've had a lot of work session requests that we can't even get to, including my favorite one, TDRs, which is super relevant to the comp plan, but we can't even get to that. So I just want us to think a little bit more. So I think I would not want to do a work session on that one. That would be my opinion.
I think I'm okay with that. You know, if maybe they can provide us a memo or something with some of the details, and then we can look a little bit closer at it. And then if there's still support from the council to have a work session, we can make that decision at that time.
That's fair. I can support that.
All right, councilors, I will work to get a little bit more information on that and send that to you. And to also just to say that this was a bill that was passed, so this is current state law and is just a tool that is available to council. I agree that it would not be good to open it up to every single bill as a process standpoint. So, but that's all I've got for you today, council.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have an executive session with 5 items. 9.1 real estate, RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, paren little b for 10 minutes, no potential after action. Pending litigation, RCW 42.30.110, paren 1, paren little I for 10 minutes. Collective bargaining, same RCW for 10 minutes, no potential after action. Pending litigation, same RCW for 10 minutes, no potential after action, and that was added 9.6. I don't know what to call this one. I guess maybe it's pending litigation. For same RCW for 15 minutes and potential after action.
And if I can make one correction on the collective bargaining, that RCW reference should not be included.
Okay.
And I believe the total is 55 minutes.
55 minutes.
5 minutes for a break.
So 5 minutes for a break. So that would take us to 4:05.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, this is our last meeting for the year.
Happy holidays. Yeah.
So we're going into executive session.
The Clark County Chair has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 10 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:15. Thank you. The Clark County Chair has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 15 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:30. Thank you. Good afternoon. The Clark County Council Chair has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:35. Thank you. The council chair has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:40. Thank you. The council has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:45. Thank you. The Clark County Council has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:50. Thank you. The Clark County Council has asked us to announce that executive session will be extended for an additional 5 minutes and open session will reconvene at 4:55. Thank you.
Okay, council has returned from our executive session, and I'd like to make a motion related to the CTRAN board composition to direct our representatives who serve on that board to support a 4-3-2 proportional board representation, 4 from the city of Vancouver, 3 from Clark County, and 2 that would be shared among the small cities. And further, to exempt the small cities, including Yacolt, from paying for O&M for light rail. This, I believe, will be an issue that comes up at the next CTRAN board meeting, and as has been our practice, and the expectation, I think, of CTRAN that we send our representatives to represent the full council in as much as we can agree on what that position should be. So my motion is the 4-3-2 and exempting the small cities, including Yacolt, from paying for O&M for light rail. Is there a second?
Chair, I just have a comment
Yes,
before I
please.
vote. Our council has never done this, and we have never voted in lockstep. For that reason, I will be a nay, as I have current litigation that is affecting this opinion, because this has never been in our rules or procedures or the way that we have ever voted related to CTRAN. Thank you.
Thanks for your opinion on that.
Chair, just a point of clarification.
Yes, please.
I believe in your motion, you mentioned the composition board, and I think you're referring to the CTRAN board itself. Is that
Yes,
accurate?
I'm sorry. This would be the CTRAN board.
Thank you.
Chair.
Yes.
In addition, there was a second amendment that was put forward by the city of Ridgefield in essentially stripping away the power from the council of appointing.
We need to have a second before we
Yes,
continue deliberation.
there's a second, and
Second.
there's a second. Okay, please continue.
As I was mentioning, that another amendment that was put forward along with the first one that you mentioned in exempting the smaller cities, including the city of Yacolt, from paying for O&M for light rail. That second amendment was to strip the county council from its authority and power to appoint who they choose to the CTRAN board, which, by the way, is not binding, and they have absolutely no power or authority to do so.
That's not part of my motion.
Can we add that?
It's not part of my motion. It's not, I'm moving the 4-3-2 solely with the exemption for the small cities.
I hear what you're
Not
saying.
including
You
anything related to appointing
could
people.
ask for a friendly amendment.
Thank you. I think I hear what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
So yes.
Thank you, thank you.
So
Any-
second.
Moved and seconded. Any further comments?
Chair,
Yes.
I do appreciate the trying for a compromise here, but I'm going to abstain. I just need more time to think about this.
Okay. Any other comments? Go ahead.
I will just say that this is a very strange situation to be in. And the reason being is I feel like we're trying to wear two hats at the same time. You know, as the composition board, I really feel favorable to the amendments to the original motion. As county councilor, I also want to make sure that our influence is as strong as it possibly can be. So I am really torn on this issue. It's a tough one for me.
I know, and I appreciate that. And I don't know that we can come up with actual direction to our representatives on the CTRAN board, but it's my desire to make an attempt. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
Change, I go back if we could to I was just too late.
Okay. 3 ayes, 1 no, and
Abstain.
1 abstention. Okay, thank you very much. I know this has been difficult. This is our last
Here.
item. Oh, yep. Go
I
ahead.
hate to put a wrinkle into this, but we did give specific directions on basically how to make a motion. But if there's another motion put out prior to that, or if it's slightly different, do we want to deal with that, or do we want to just say if it goes a different course that the individual counselors can vote what they feel is right?
Well, I think that's a good point because we can't know for sure exactly how things are going to play out. But if this is by majority vote, the preferred recommendation, then I think we don't know what'll play out. And so I think there will be some measure of good judgment on the part of our representatives. Is that good?
Just glad I'm not going to be there.
Okay, and it's my alternate Counselor Little will be there. So best of luck to everyone on that. And so with that, I just want to wish everyone the very best holiday. Take a good break, get a chance to relax and spend time with your family and friends. So, and with that, and without objection, this meeting is adjourned.